Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and there's a moment in every veteran's story when the mission suddenly changes and you're left standing at the threshold of what's next, searching for the same sense of purpose you drive you once had in uniform. For Justin Boyum, that turning point didn't come with a grand promotion or medal, but in a quiet moment of leadership, guiding a struggling soldier to turn his life around. That experience, believing in others even when they haven't yet found that belief in themselves, planted the seed for a new mission well beyond military borders. After his own transition from Army officer to civilian life, Justin did what so many of us do. He went searching for significance in the corporate world, only to discover that something essential was missing. Entrepreneurship, turned out, was not just a way to make a living, but the next evolution of his call to serve. Couldn't agree more. Now, as the founder of Charge Forward and creator of the Epic Expert System, trademark, Justin helps other leaders, especially veterans, turn their unique purpose into high-impact, high-value businesses without burning out or losing sight of what matters most. Today, we're going to dig into how Justin took the core lessons of military leadership and turned them into a thriving business, why he believes veterans are uniquely equipped to lead as entrepreneurs, and how you can chart a mission that's truly your own. Justin, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, Adam, thanks for having me, man. I love what you're doing with the podcast and what you're doing to help veterans in their transition. That's obviously something that I care deeply about too, and so it's awesome to see what you're up to.
Yeah, man, having the same mission, this should be an awesome conversation. So let's dive right in, dude. Where did you grow up and what was the inspiration for joining?
Yeah, great question. So I grew up in Austin, Texas. That's where I've spent a good majority of my life outside of service. Is here. It's a great place to grow up. What inspired me, if I be perfectly honest, is that my dad served, my grandfathers served in the military. So it's something that I always kind of knew about. It wasn't something that I was necessarily passionate to do. But I was, like everybody else that grew up in the 90s, they were telling you had to go to college, right? And my family was not like a super rich family. And so I had to find a way to go make that happen. And so I was okay, let me look into like an ROTC scholarship. Let me see what can happen. And so, I went and found one, got one, and, the rest is rock and roll history, as they say. That's kind of what inspired me to get into it. But as much as I maybe wasn't like passionate, I want to be just like my grandparents and serve in the military and go all the way with this, I'm so glad that I did it, because, the things that you learn and the things that you can get from being in the military has definitely served me ongoing. And it has been a major part of, what I try to bring to the world now, is the things that I learned in doing that. So I'm very thankful that I was driven down that path.
Yeah, I'm really curious. Why the ROTC scholarship, right? Because, you said, did you have somebody kind of pushing you into the ROTC? Because this is my advice to everybody who asks me, should my son or daughter join the military? I'm thinking about joining the military. Can you help me, figure this out? My advice is one, always Air Force, and two, ROTC. And really my bigger point is, I don't care what branch you go to. I just think that it is a far superior path to go to college on an ROTC scholarship or go to one of the service academies and become an officer. One, because you make more money. Two, I'm sure you can speak to this because you were an officer in the United States Army. When I was in the Army, I would be on deployments, and officers at the end of their time as an XO or a platoon leader, they would up and leave deployments to go to another duty station. There was no stop movement. You have to wait until you get back, like us enlisted guys. And so, somebody like me who joined I joined for a lot of reasons. I think we all joined for the same reason, whether we know it or not, which is to serve something bigger than ourselves. And we don't really figure that out until long after we get out. However, when I joined, it was really for the travel. I knew the world was a big place. I was enthralled with the idea of, at the time when I joined in '03, we weren't in a 20-year war yet. We didn't know how long Iraq was going to go on, or I didn't really know much about Afghanistan at the time. And so we were still, infantry, you're guaranteed to go to Korea at some point in your career. I think you could probably remember that. And then also 2 to 2.5, 3 years, you were guaranteed going to be PCSing. And I was like, yes, I love living in new spots. I do it as an adult now. I spend maybe 5 or 6 years in one spot, and then it's like pick up and move. Let's go see somewhere else. I don't know. That's kind of weird, but I enjoyed it. And so
No, I get it. I feel the itch all the time. In fact, my wife and I are talking about, hey, it's time for a new adventure too, right? So I hear you, and it's fun to be able to do that.
But I'm just curious, like how did you figure out? Because I didn't know anything about ROTC. I was grew up in a broken home and went through that twice. My dad left my ex stepmother when I was in high school, my senior year, and so a running joke is I joined because I was mad at my parents, and the truth is I just wanted out of small town Indiana, but I didn't know about ROTC, and recruiters don't tell you about that shit. They don't tell you.
They definitely don't. I can speak to that exactly. I didn't really know about it very much. My dad had known a little bit, but actually, when I was first looking at a post high school life, like I actually talked to some recruiters, and they were taking me down the enlisted path, like having me go do these tests and things like this, and but I had already applied to some colleges, and after getting accepted to some, like the ROTC programs
They
reached
start
out,
popping
like
up on your
what I mean,
radar.
that comes up as a thing.
Yeah.
And so I had a weird one that was where it was kind of almost a last minute thing, like it was the summer before I would have started school, and the ROTC program reached out to me and said, hey, we've got a couple spots left. Why don't you come up and interview and see if we can get you in? And so I technically ended up with what would have amounted to at the time like a 3.5 year scholarship, if you will. But I mean, obviously everything gets kind of covered on the back end with the GI Bill anyway.
Right.
But I just went and interviewed, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, and this is super cool. They were showing me about what it was, and I just said, oh yeah, this is great. It's like getting to use the GI Bill in advance.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Now I can kind of go a couple of ways. Like there's pros and cons for it. One, you've already laid it out. You get to go in as an officer. You make more money, right? It changes the world. And I don't think I would go back and change anything. I definitely would do it again this way. There's also some advantages to being listed, right? Because a lot of us just don't know what we want, right? So I have a degree in a box somewhere, right, that I'm never going to really use for anything,
I've
right?
got two of them in a box somewhere that I'm never going to use for anything.
And
I
I
got
don't
them
want to be
afterwards.
I don't want to be the anti-college person, right? But sometimes I go like, well, the actual educational part of this is almost worthless to me, other than it proves that I can study something and take a test and remember enough things to get a good grade. It's great to do, and obviously being an officer is awesome because you're immediately put in charge. And obviously the advantage of doing this is that your post-college career comes with a guaranteed job, right? You know what I mean? So whereas like how many people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on college degrees and then go make minimum wage somewhere?
I mean,
right?
even I did it. Exhausted the GI Bill and voc rehab, and still couldn't get a job. Like a nice,
so that's the nice thing about going the RTC route is that you basically go right from college into a full-time gig to actually develop some skills and really learn how to take care of yourself. So there's pluses and minuses. Sometimes I wish I had been prior enlisted when I was in because I didn't know a lot of things about how military actually worked. Like ROTC is a very watered down experience to kind of show you what that's like. So I still felt like I didn't even know what like the rank structure was, right? Like, so, and I should have, I studied it, but I didn't really know it until I got in. So I had to go make some mistakes in that regard, but, it's great to do. If you're going to go to college anyway, I mean, why not have somebody else pay for it for you?
Yeah.
And obviously, again, being part of the military, you and I could talk about just how meaningful and how fulfilling that can be. Not that the military wouldn't, they can certainly chew you up and spit you out if you let them. But it's a wonderful thing to do. You're part of a 1% community, and it's amazing to get to go do. And I think that anybody, whether you're enlisted or you want ROTC like me, you should be pushing to become an officer anyway, right? Not only the money benefits, but just the things you learn as a leader. It's the number one leadership, development organization in the world is to go to the military,
Yep,
right?
from
So
day one, whether you realize it or not, you're being taught how to
mhm.
lead. What was the ROTC experience like?
Yeah, it's just, normal, at least my experience. I don't know how it is. There's different ones, like, so down the road from where I'm where at Texas A&M, they have the core right there, that they're pretty famous for. It's a little bit more intense with them, but it's basically our ROTC. But mine was, I take a couple of classes that are specific to military development per week, and then we would have some labs that we do, and we did training over the summer, just almost like being in the Guard. You know what I mean? Except I'm a full-time college student, so and then we would wear uniforms a couple times a week.
So you're kind of getting
So
the best of both worlds, the college
you're,
world
you're
and
getting
a
a
little
little
bit
bit of a
of
flavor for it, right? And you're starting to learn, but you're in a pretty protected environment. At least mine was, where you can make some mistakes or whatever, and you forget to salute somebody, and it's not a big deal, right?
right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least that's what mine was. I know some of them were more intense, and obviously the academies are probably way more intense as far as military experience.
4 years of military before you actually join the military is how I'm so glad I never did the service academy. I looked into West Point and I was like, yeah, that's definitely not for me. I don't have
well, here we'll talk about this as we go on the conversation, but the biggest advantage of the ROTC program, whether you're 18 or 25 or whenever you're joining it, and I certainly had some prior enlisted people that were in ROTC with me, right? They were using their GI Bills, but going through ROTC to transition to becoming an officer, right? And so that's one way to go. One of the cool things is it's like this availability is to you. We've already talked about all the benefits post ROTC that you get, because again, you come out with a college degree and a job, right? And then, but now you're not using anything out of pocket to go do that, right? It's like, why wouldn't you use this benefit if it's available to you? And it's like using other people's money to go get the result, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right. And
I love spending other people's money.
Right. As they say, like, if you're good at something, don't do it for free. And so, like, they paid for it. Right. And so now, and then I get going there. And so I always used to get people, and I'm sure you get this, and I think it's a wonderful thing that people do. I don't mean to have fun with it at their expense, but people will be, oh, thank you for your service, or thank you for going to do that. And I always go, that's awesome, but they did pay me.
Well, this is a topic that comes up a lot, and for me, it's uncomfortable because we come from the all volunteer force, right?
Sure.
So we knew what, particularly, my situation. What year did you join? Like actually become active duty?
I was active duty from 2008 to 2013.
Okay, so right in the middle of the beginning of the surge is when you came in. I came in 2003. And like I said, I knew Iraq was going on. I knew when I signed the contract, there is a 99.9% chance I will be deployed within a year of getting to my first duty station. That was explicit to me. And that's exactly what I wanted when I came in. And so, it's uncomfortable for me when people say thank you for my service for a lot of reasons. One, because I volunteered and I kept volunteering. And I actually absolutely love that life, which is a common misconception with the work that I do and all the hate that I put on the transition program, because people think that I, for some reason, don't respect or love what I did for the Army or the Army itself, which is completely not true. I just think that they could do better in getting us out, and it would be to their benefit, right? And so, thinking about it like that, it's really hard. What are you thanking me for? I just went and did a job. You know what I mean?
Right.
I had to feed my family too, like you do. And so I don't know. It's really uncomfortable. Then there's the element of how do you respond to that? Because isn't it like pretty egotistical to say you're welcome? What are we saying?
I always just thank them in return. I always just go, hey, well, thank you for saying that. And then I usually do my kind of joke to undercut it.
But they
did
pay
me, right? You know what I mean? And so, and usually everybody appreciates it. And I appreciate that people have gratitude. And I think that's amazing. I think if more people practice gratitude in all respects, we'd all be happier. Right?
100%.
So,
100%.
And I don't need to go down that route. And we could talk about that'd be a whole nother podcast that we could do.
For sure. So let's talk about the end of ROTC. You're getting ready to go active duty. It's time to detail to a branch. Why infantry? Is that what you wanted? Is that what you got stuck with?
I wasn't in infantry. I served with the 1st Infantry Division. Okay. I was technically a quartermaster, Logistics made sense to me. I'm a numbers guy. Like anytime I took a math course, I didn't have to study. Like it's just easy for me. I probably should have leaned into that. I should have leaned into that more. I probably would have been more successful as a college student if I'd just gone that route. But I
Just
tried to
get
make it hard on
advanced
myself.
math degrees.
I should have just gotten an advanced math degree. It probably would have been much easier for me. So like I was a kinesiology major because I thought I was going to be like a physical therapist, but turns out I don't understand chemistry and all these other things. But like when I would take like biomechanics or physics type stuff that we would do, like all that stuff would be easy for me, right? I was just like, oh yeah, I don't even have to worry about this, right? That's kind of my thing. So I should have recognized that earlier and just probably gotten it. I'd probably be a straight A student. But as they will, once you discover it, then you get good at things, right? And so that's all good. So when I got in, I chose to go quartermaster for that reason. Obviously, I think right at that time they were combining quartermaster, transportation, and ordnance into one.
They were
logistics core.
Yep.
And so people would ask me on my MOS all the time, and I'm always confused by it. I don't really know because I think that they were trying to transition it, but there was a time when 92 Alpha was both a logistics officer or a quartermaster officer and a motor pool
like a BMO. Like a BMO.
Like a BMO, right?
Yeah.
And so it was really confusing. So I don't really know, but anyway, so logistics officer, once I made captain, right, they combined it all into logistics officer.
They did something similar around the same time with, as I was coming in, I was 11 X-ray Airborne Ranger, and that's a whole different story for another podcast about how that never came to fruition.
We'll have to do a whole series on it.
Right, yeah. But at the time, 11 Bravos, Charlies, and Mikes still existed. And so as I was kind of coming in, they were phasing Mikes out and just turning regular Bravos into mechanized guys. So I get it. The Army does some strange things.
They sure do.
Let's talk about, just run us through the highlight reel of kind of the rest of your career leading up to the decision to get out, because this show is about the transition, your struggle through the transition, the issues that you dealt with.
But I can't wait to talk. I'm very passionate about talking about that. That's why I love what you're up to.
Yeah, man. And so I think to me it's important to kind of paint the picture of what you did while you were in your career in your own kind of words, highlight reel it. We don't have to go into detail.
Sure, no problem.
It's important because I think it does affect the transition. It gives perspective and context for what you're going through in the transition. You've already said something that is, I'm going to hit on after we start talking about your transition. And I think once you give kind of the highlight reel, it'll make a lot more sense. But take it away. The floor is yours. Just whatever comes to top of mind.
I don't know this to be true, and I haven't met anybody that had a similar experience to me. But I think I had a very unique military experience for the short time that I was active duty. I know it was 5 years, but like that's a short time, right? People obviously do 20, 30, 40 years of it. I never, even though I was an officer, I never served as a platoon leader, right? I basically skipped that step, right? And so what happened was I was assigned as the executive officer for the Intel and Sustainment Company gets confusing, right? But it's the division headquarters battalion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is a first ID thing, and I know that they're supposed to be kind of like their own animal. But basically what that meant is that I was in charge of helping to run staff operations for the division level staff. Right. And so we were kind of like the administrative people over that. And so what that means is instead of having 30 soldiers, I was the executive officer of a 130 person company that was supporting the intelligence and logistics branches of the division staff. And then we deployed almost immediately to Iraq while I was doing that. In full deployment to Iraq, awesome things, and we could dive into all kinds of stuff. But you understand, I was the executive officer for that whole thing. Came back, joined the operations staff for that same battalion, and I was supposed to only be on 3-year support orders. That unit was then deploying back to Afghanistan, and the battalion commander asked me to stay on, and I basically took over as the headquarters company commander for that battalion for their rear detachment for it. So I extended for a little while to do that, and I took it because he was going to rate me as a full commander to do that. It was like the only slotted position for the actual rating. I said, sure, no problem, I can do that. And then I transitioned out. But the fun thing is, and here's where I learned some things in there. They did not officially extend me on my orders. Like I didn't hear anything back from it until like 2 weeks before I was supposed to be like out, right? And so I'm like sitting there going, I'm telling the people, like, going, I guess I got to start clearing and handing stuff off because I don't see it coming. I hope it will. And I'm sitting there going, like, can you colonels and generals help me with this? Like, because otherwise you won't have this commander here in a minute because you're going to stop paying me. And so and nothing. I'm all team player here. I want to help as much as I can. And so sure enough, they came in and then we extended. So I had like this express, like, oh my God, I need to go get a job for a couple of weeks. And then I had like basically a full year and a half from then to like, I'm not going to let that happen to me again. Right. So I kind of went through a little bit more. I took a little bit more care of my transition after that.
What was the decision?
Some things I could have done better, but
what led you to the decision to get out? It just wasn't for you anymore, or
I got married shortly right after college and right before I went active duty, and we were making the decision. It wasn't necessarily something I wanted to do full time. I certainly could have, and sometimes I still miss it, right?
Yeah.
But we intentionally didn't start a family while we were on active duty because we didn't want me to be deploying all the time and stuff. So we were going to make that decision, and ultimately we're like, hey, well, let's go try, being like, I can kind of stay in the reserves and we can go this route, and so we can start to kind of plant our roots, if you will,
for sure.
and kind of go down that route. And then once I was out, it was like, yeah, I mean, listen, I loved it, but it was not something that I meant to do for 20, 30 years.
Well, it's definitely not conducive to raising a family, right?
Yeah, raising a family is tough, and to do that because you got to deploy, right? And
I think it's an incredible level of self-awareness to just have the foresight to think about intentionally not starting a family because, dude, I joined at 17. I didn't, and all the guys around me, like, we didn't have a fucking clue what was going on and how long it was going to go on and how often we were going to be gone. And I even think, like, even in a peacetime army, at least for infantry guys, you're still gone a fuck ton because it's always training in the field for something, right? And it's like, these are the things that I don't think any of us consider. It's just like, meet a girl, you're getting ready to deploy, love this girl, now we having kids, now I'm away from the kids, I don't realize the toll this is going to take on me and the kids and the wife and all of this.
Right.
So I just think it's incredible level of foresight and self-awareness for you guys to have thought that. And I think it's admirable because then you structure the rest of your life around that too. Like, you made a pivotal decision, early on, like, hey, we're not going to have kids and I'm not going to do this army thing forever. I can go do the reserve thing, but I'm not going to do the active duty thing. And so I think that may have given you somewhat of an advantage to transitioning because, unlike me, like, for example, this year would have been my 22nd year. I knew for a fact I was going to go this long, right? So like this year, June 24th, 22nd year, this would have been my retirement date. It's really weird to kind of have this conversation and actually think about this out loud now because I was so adamant about, like, that was my life path. And then obviously 10 years, cut short or whatever and whatnot. So, good for you. Let's talk about the transition. The day you get your DD-214. Just walk us through what that was like. What are you feeling?
Yeah, so oddly enough, just to make this even more complicated, technically I was the Texas National Guard the whole time. And so I was on active duty orders while I was doing that. So every day counted as 2 days. So once they were processing me out, they were like, well, technically you've done 8 years. And so I was like, so what does that mean? They're like, well, we're going to assign you to a reserve unit close to where you're going to live. And I'd already secured a role by that point. I can talk about that transition in a second, but they were like, basically you can come to this. You have like a year to show up or we'll just automatically honorably discharge you. Right. So even though I was in the Texas National Guard for my entire military career, I never one time went to a drill or saw anybody or met anybody from a guard or reserve unit. And so they was like, I was like, okay, so my commitment's done. And they're like, yeah, if you don't show up, like, your commitment's done. And I was like, okay, great. So transition, let's talk transition. So because of my near almost 2-week transition that I was about to go to, I wasn't gonna let that happen again. And so I started reaching out, started doing what everybody does, your resume, all that other stuff, start looking into what kinds of roles might make fit for somebody like me. I went to a bunch of recruiting offices, that would handle things like headhunters that knew what to do as well as do my own thing. Um, I knew that I wanted to move back to Texas because that's where I'm from, and it's a great place to live. It still is a great place to live, despite saying, "Hey, we might want to try a new adventure now."
Oh, it's on my list. I have
Yeah,
places we're actually looking at, buy a bunch of land, build a barno, let my
well,
wife farm
definitely
it,
reach
call
out
it
to
a
me,
day.
and we'll talk about the areas where that would be a great fit for you, and we can have that discussion. So, I interviewed for over 6 months. I probably interviewed just a ton. Like I was going to these conferences. Some of these companies that do this, they set up a deal where you can basically speed an interview for like a day with like 10 companies. And they can go next steps. I had quite a bit of them that I would go visit. Settled in on an opportunity with a logistics operation in Fort Worth, Texas. Um, Great opportunity. Bought a house. Went to it. They hired me. Honestly, I think it's because I was over prepared and really ready to go and really knew how to sell this. Um, they hired me like 3 months before I could start. you know, and after getting there, I'm really surprised that they did that because they needed help. And
Bad, huh?
so I must have done something right in the interview process for them to do that. But it was great, and then as everybody else, it's like, you just don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
You can do all the planning you want, but then you realize being a logistics officer in the Army is different than being a logistics manager in for a civilian retail logistics organization. It's just a completely different mindset. The things that drive it are different. The personalities are different and what they care about. As you kind of mentioned, some of the things that I loved about being an officer was being able to do the people part of that
Mhm.
and really lead people and help people and set them up for success. And when you're doing it in the civilian side, everything's about saving money and making more money. And those are great things. And as we'll talk about what I do now, like I love making money. But I don't like to do it at the expense of people's health or safety or well-being.
See, and
Um,
that's a good
and
delineation there, right? Because money. Oh, man, dude, I'm struggling with a money issue right now, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So go ahead and finish your thought, and then
Yeah,
we can dive into because
I knew probably within 3 months, like I had a headhunter that helped me to get there. I'm calling my guy and I said, "Hey, this isn't going to work. Like, I don't love this." And, um, there's some, I can talk more about the recruiting world because I ended up joining it. But like, I was kind of stuck. Like, they couldn't help me and I got to go, okay, well, I got to figure out how to get out of here. This isn't great. I'd already bought a house, which I probably shouldn't have done now that retrospect. And so I got an opportunity. I ended up working with a different recruiting firm that's focused on military, right? And they just
Mhm.
said, "Hey, listen, you can help other veterans figure out what to do." And I was like, "This is perfect because I know why this didn't work for me, right? And I can help guide other people to do that." And their office was located in Austin, where I'm from. So I was like, perfect. Like we can move home because we were talking about having kids, and so like, cool. Like we'll be there next to grandparents and everything. Um, and again, great opportunity. I actually really loved working with them, but the same thing would happen. It's like, this isn't exactly my day to day of what I thought it was going to be. It ended up being kind of more of a sales position.
Right.
And as much as I love sales now, it was just not the way that it really worked for me. And then we ended up like, hey, we're going to have a kid. So I went and took a role with a technology company. Um, and again, all those are fun. Like whenever you get a new job, there's always this honeymoon period where it's super exciting. It's, as long as you're not just doing it just because you need a job, right? Right. And even
That's a
then,
big distinction.
right.
Not just doing it because you need a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I went and I was like, oh, this is exciting. It'll be more structured because it was a bigger company. But then, shortly after, a couple months in, you're going like, man, I'm just not happy. I'm not fulfilled doing this. There's always something wrong. And so I go like, I've got 3 jobs in 4 years. Right. And I'm not happy at any of them. Right.
Mhm.
And so I can go, well, this company sucks and that company sucks and this, that, but I can also go, well, what's wrong here? Right.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
probably the issue is that I'm misaligned more than the company is misaligned. And I look back on it and I don't really hold any animus towards anywhere I worked. I actually think they were all awesome opportunities. They just weren't right for me.
Hmm.
And so I got an opportunity to then start focusing on me. And I had some opportunities to go really learn from some of the best out there. I got invited to like a 4-day seminar with some of the world's leading high performance like experts. And I remember going to it, and I hope it's okay to kind of share this part of it, right? I remember
Yeah.
going to it, and they're talking about, and like people are like jumping up and down and excited. And I was like, this is a little weird. You're right. It's not for, I'm not that kind of guy, but okay, like whatever. And he gets up there and speaking, saying some great things. And then people are just getting blown away by, maybe you should have a plan, and oh, like you should probably like wake up at the same time every day, and maybe you should care about what you eat, and maybe you should have a goal for yourself, right? And you should do all these things. And it's like this is all good stuff, but like we learned that like in the military, like we have missions and we know what we're doing, right? And I'm sitting there going, like, people are just like their lives are being changed. You can see it happen for them. And I'm going like, I know all this stuff, and these people are getting this awesome experience, and they're going to go on to do all these great things. I've kept in touch with some of the people that I met there, and they're doing amazing things. And I just went there like, oh, that's what I loved about being an officer, was being able to help people, like even if because sometimes you just can't see things, right? We all have this tunnel vision, and you just need those people that can guide you. And so like, hey, there's a pothole over there, don't step in it, right? And here's how we can overcome those things where they don't become an issue. And I was like, oh, this is what I need to do. And so like literally like at the end of that week, I was like, okay, I'm going to go figure out how to get like an LLC. And I launched a coaching business to help, with a focus of helping veterans know what the hell to do with their lives, right?
Well, and
when they get out of the military and go be awesome, right? And go tap back into what made them awesome while they were in the military, right? And then we can go on from there. It's kind of evolved since then. But
I think it's super important, because you hit on a bunch of things earlier in the conversation. You said, there's something appealing about being part of the 1%. And then you get out and you lose that. And that kind of throws everything off for you, because like you said, you had 4 jobs in 3 years, or three jobs in 4 years. I can't remember how you said it.
Yeah, 3 jobs in 4 years. Yeah.
And all because something wasn't aligning for you inside of those companies, right? So that's like big epiphany number 1 that you had, is like, you even said it. You said, well, I could say, fuck this company, that company's fucked up, and this company, whatever. Maybe I should turn that around to me and like look inward, right? Which is a big part of my message. I think there are a few things that we all need to do when we get out that we're not taught how to do. And I probably don't do a good enough job of teaching people how to do it either, unless you book a one-on-one call with me, and then we can really get into the weeds of that stuff. But you need to define kind of your core beliefs, values, and passions, or the first 3 things you need to like sit with yourself and really figure out, right? So when you do that, you really quickly understand why you feel so misaligned at these companies that you're getting these jobs from. And then you need to define what success looks like to you. And I think this is probably the most important one. And you can't define it until you've defined the other 3 things. But what success looks like for Justin is different from what success looks like for Adam, is different for what they're telling you in a TAP class success looks like. And I think that's a really important distinction. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's different, right? So 95% of people have a full-time job, right? They work for somebody else, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But entrepreneurship for me meant that instead of having one client that I depend on everything for, right? Whatever company I worked for, right? Instead of having one client that could be taken away from me at any time, as many people learned during COVID in 2020, right? I could serve many clients, and I could actually do more for people. And I don't know if you know this, but like according to the SBA, right, veterans are 45% more likely to have their own business.
I do,
right? And I think that there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because of the things that we talked about that are missing from corporate life that are existing in the military, and that it's the overall serving something greater than yourself. And companies are not evil at their core. I'm not an anti-corporate guy. Like, again, they're awesome. They can be awesome in their own ways. Like I said, my dad worked for a corporate, company for 20 years, right? Awesome. We're good for him, right? The challenge is how do we make that more meaningful? Right. Mm-hmm. And so for veterans, you go, I can have the same experience that I would have in a corporate office, but I can do it with an overall mission in mind. And you can only do that as an entrepreneur. That's about the only place it exists.
I totally agree. Right? And your stats from the SBA, 45% more likely. It's the whole reason I even started this podcast before I started studying some of the early transcripts and really put my finger on what the problem was. I read a military.com article that said after World War II, 70 something percent of small businesses in the United States were owned by veterans after World War II. After Vietnam, that fell to something like 30%. And then for post 9/11 guys like you and me, that was like 3.8%. I'm sure that article was old. I can't find it again, which blows my mind because the internet, it's pretty easy to find things. However, I think it's probably at this point a decade old, and so I think those numbers are going up. And I started looking around at people, the Sean Ryan show, and all the guests that he would have on that were telling their stories all became entrepreneurs. These tier one guys, these special operators going out and starting businesses. And then of course the algorithm picks up what you're consuming and starts feeding you more stuff like that. So you find other information out there pointing to veterans starting businesses. And I was like, that's it. That's the path back to purpose for veterans, because it's a never ending mission that you get to control. Right. And I think there's a big aspect of that is in finding purpose is you need some kind of mission. And that mission can be as broad as what you and I are doing. I just want to help people. I just want to be the guy I didn't have.
Yeah. And,
right?
and I have to say this too. Your mission doesn't have to be like serve veterans, right? Again, I love that that's a mission that you have, and we share some passion there, right? But you can be a veteran and not have to have a veteran specific thing that you're doing, right? And so I know people who have launched their own like insurance companies. I've known people who do their own like let's say trade type businesses, right? It really doesn't matter. But I think that veterans, again, if you valued your service at all, you took it at all seriously, whether you were in there for 4 or 5 years like me or 20 years or more, right? If you took it seriously and you value that, you gain something that the rest of the non 1%ers don't have. And that entrepreneurship is not built to be just an easy thing to do, right? There are going to be times where it's going well and things, especially early on, where you need to be able to move forward anyway. You need to keep being able to go. And the pain tolerance of that experience is something that people outside of the military, it's very rare to find. Right. They're out there and they can, and it's really good. And so what I found was, as things evolved for me, right, what I love to do is I love to help people actually succeed. And this is something that I can even speak to, like a biblical part of this too. Like this is whether you believe that or not. Early on, and listen, the Bible is like the greatest selling book of all time. I think that we should take it seriously, whether you're a believer or not. But these are true values, which is why they stand. But early on in the Bible, he talks to Adam and Eve, or God does, about you're called to multiply, right? You're supposed to be fruitful and multiply. Well, that doesn't mean just have more kids, right? That means taking the gifts that you've been giving and being able to take it to other people and allow them to grow as well, right? And for however you want to do that. And which is, again, where entrepreneurship provides a unique way to tap into that concept. Yeah. And you can take the things that you're already amazing at, right? I've met some military guys who they love health, right? And they love to get super in shape and go do all the things. Good for them, right? That's not my bag, right? But they're experts at it. And imagine that you could have a full-time career and help other people achieve those things. And by the way, you can also make some money doing that.
Dude, right? Prime example of this is I worked with a female Marine who was retiring after 20 years. She had been restoring furniture on Facebook Marketplace, kind of in between when she had time. She made an extra 30 or 40 grand. This has been a while since I've talked to her, but like in the year before, she's getting ready to retire. And it's okay, so imagine all this time you're going to have now with no obligation to the Marine Corps. You could triple what you're putting out from Facebook Marketplace and make 6 figures a year and be happy. And she's like, you mean I can really do that? I could just really
absolutely.
It's your own life. You don't need to be forced into this thing that's the big problem in transition is we have a TAP class that's telling us we should do X, Y, Z, and we have our families who are telling us we should do X, Y, Z, and then we have our parents who are telling us we should do, A, B, C, and then you have the internal struggle of I've got to take care of my family, I've got kids, I've got a wife, we've got a roof over our head, how am I going to pay for this? And all of that is noise, right? And so it leads me to my next question. You went to this thing. You were like, I know this. You came home and immediately started researching LLC. How did you come to terms with the risk and providing, because you had young kids, right?
I had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time.
So you have
when
a
I did
2 year
that.
old and a 3 year old, and I talk to a ton of veterans, and I don't ever try to force entrepreneurship or a career in corporate America on anybody. I just try to listen to what they're telling me and then just give them advice based on what they're telling me. And a lot of times that ends up they should be pursuing some kind of side hustle or building some kind of business because just given what they're telling me, it's like, this, but then they'll give me all the excuses. Well, I got X amount of money in the bank account that'll last me X number of months, and I got kids. And it's like, how did you
Huh.
come to terms with that and take the
I
chance on
I
yourself?
well, listen, I was miserable. And I could not be my best self for my family if I'd stayed in a corporate environment.
And I think that's
Right.
true for a
Right.
lot of people, right?
And
Like,
now that's not to say that it was necessarily the economically smartest decision
hey,
to leave while I was learning that kind of thing. And so, but that kind of leads me to like what's passionate, what I'm passionate about now, and how I help other people come to terms with this. Now, some people it's like, hey, listen, pay the bills, do what you're supposed to do, like do all the things that you're supposed to. But if you have this calling and you know that you have a higher level of that you can provide out there and you can help change lives. And again, that can be done like you can be an electrician and do that. You can
yep,
be again, you can sell insurance and do that. You can do all kinds of things. And it's really simple. People like to complicate things like business plans. I make it super easy. How much money do you want to make? Right? That's it. Right. And then okay, what do you want to provide and how much can you charge to do that? And then the numbers become easy,
right,
right? I land on for most people, they should do some kind of consulting or coaching, right? Especially military people, right? Because you just have so much experience and knowledge and you've dealt with some amazing things that it'd be hard for me to even describe them, right? Just out of pocket. Like you'll have a story that's amazing. And you have this perspective that people need. And there's a huge demand for it out there. And it becomes very simple. It's like, well, do you think that there is a world, Adam, where there are 20 people in the United States? Let's just keep it to the United States. Do you think there's 20 people that you can help to achieve an amazing result over the next 12 months?
well, it's
That's
not
it,
fair because I know that now. I know
right?
that's true
Right. But
now,
like,
right,
it's 20 people, right?
right,
I'm not saying like a million people, right? Because a lot
but
of people think of like selling products on Etsy or whatever, and you got to sell like a couple 100,000 units, right? And all those other things. Like, not with the value that you have within you. Like you have 20 people. Like
right,
even if you didn't know what you're good at, like are there 20 people out there that you could reach out to and help them do something? And I go like, well, if the answer to that is yes, right? Well, 20 people, it's not hard to reach out to, right? I'll give you an example. Adam's one, right? Just if it were me right now, can I think of 20 people? Well, I can help Adam, right? And okay, now I need 19. Can I go find
right,
19 other people?
yeah.
If you can find 20 people that you can help, there's no reason you shouldn't make at least six figures per year.
All right, so
20
let's
people.
let's play a
20
game.
people out of 20 people out of the 350 million people that are in the United States alone. Let me go global and say 7 to 8 billion people, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's that you can have that, and that's you only need to have 20 people that you're helping. So 20 clients or 20 customers or whatever you want to look at that. And then you can certainly expand it from there. Because a lot of people think you have to have thousands of customers to be successful. And you do
Well,
not.
let's play a game, Justin. For the last little bit of time we have here, you just said that you believe one of the easiest things that veterans could get involved in to build wealth for themselves is consulting or coaching. So, run us through what you think they should be doing from the second they step out to
Yeah.
build some kind of coaching business, and
We'll
just give
we'll make
us
it super
give us some
easy.
sauce, man.
We'll make it super easy. So here's the thing I noticed about people who launch businesses, right? Here's the biggest challenge that keeps most business owners, certainly in their first couple of years, up at night is that they are living month to month.
Mm-hmm.
Like at any moment, they won't have the ability to pay their employees or pay themselves or do things, and they might go a couple months without what they need, right? And so it's really having access to capital, having cash on hand is the biggest issue for most people, right? And so they think that, and then what they do is that they get these. I don't know that they're necessarily predatory. There's 100 ways to crack a nut. But I hear people talking about, oh, I'm going to go buy a franchise for like what, like $150,000, $200,000, and have them set that up for you, and then you'll maybe make a profit after 5 years if you do it well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, that's what you could do. But I'm a fan of like, why don't we just go generate the cash, right? I don't care so much about lead generation as I care about cash generation. And if you know, like at least 100 people, if you've met 100 people in your lifetime, you can go generate cash, right? And so most people, after they've reached the age of 18, they've got way more than 100 people that they've met, right? And so that's the easy part. So let's talk about what expertise they have. And I'll use an example. Let me want to use a real world example of this. I have a friend who's a former, he was a tanker in the Army. Like, so he did tank operations. Then he spent some time in recruiting for the Army. And he's also an amazing roofer. Like, he's built roofing businesses outside of the military. Great guy, super awesome, very country sounding. If you ever talk to him, right? Super cool guy. Always got along with him. Great. And I was having a conversation with him, and he was talking about how he had to run this roofing business that he was doing, but he also was working for somebody else because he had some twins on the way. So he was trying to make all this extra money. I just said, well, talk to me about this roofing business that you started, because he was here in Texas with me and he moved up to Kansas. And I said, well, talk to me about that. How are you doing that, even though you've got this other full-time gig that requires you to travel? And he just tells me the whole thing. And I said, well, do you think you could teach other people how to launch roofing businesses? And he was like, yeah, I could. I was like, cool. Well, like, how many, like, he was very pro-veteran too. I was like, oh, how many veterans do you know who would love to have their own business but are stuck working, turning wrenches for somebody or something, right? Or whatever. And I was like, well, yeah, it'd be not hard for me to reach out to some people. And they also like, listen, they don't even have to be veterans, right? I don't care, right? Because there's tons of people who are working for the man and don't want to, right? Because it sounds like you've got a way that you can do this and you don't even have to do it full time, right? So, like, awesome. And he's like, yeah, I could do that. I was like, awesome. Well, you think that we can go get 10 to 30 people into a room somewhere, and so that you can show them how to do this? He's like, yeah, we could do that. Awesome. Let's do it. And so what we use is a system that I call like the Epic Expert System, but I actually call it now like the One Day Payday, right? Because I was like, let's get them all into a room, right? And I'll help you, right? And so we did it together. And it was on a Zoom, right? And so you and I, over magic of the internet, we just brought everybody in. We showed them exactly what to do. We showed them how it goes. And at the end of it, and I said, at the end of it, we are going to make an offer to everybody that you will personally help them to launch their own businesses, right? And we'll throw on some things. And I don't want to get into all the details of that, right? And I said, cool. And he did that. And out of 22 people that were there, right, 7 people said yes.
Holy shit.
Said, yes, I would love to do that, right? 7 people said yes. And that's why we do the One Day Payday in the Epic system, because it helps people go on the journey they need to be able to say this. And so I don't want to get on the minutia of that. But let's just say we do that. I said, do you know how much we charged for that?
Probably quite a bit.
Well, guess what? You're launching a business in like record time, and you can start going and getting customers. And it allows every single one of them to clear 6 figures in a year from the start time, right? And they'll have an existing business that they don't have to be full-time in, right? So it was easy. And I said, listen, I think this is valued at way more, but let's just sell it for $6,000. Let's let you build this, because he had no materials. He had no coursework. He had nothing. He just said, I will help you guys over the next 12 weeks to build everything out.
So $6,000, he made $42,000 in a day.
He made $42,000 in a day.
But that changed his perspective quite a bit, huh?
Guess what he's doing now?
It's the same thing, right? Just running.
Can we just do it again? Can we keep going? Right?
Yeah.
Can we add more to it? Now he is able to charge much more than $6,000, right?
And
again, it's not to be arbitrary. It was, hey, you're helping people get this result, and it's extremely valuable, right? Imagine, Adam, I could go back to you when you were getting out of the military, right? Or maybe a year after you left the military, and I said, I can help you solve the answer of what you should be doing with yourself.
Yeah. Oh,
I can just solve that for you. I can just completely make it something that's no longer a problem.
I would have been like, take my money.
How much would that be worth to you?
Everything.
And it's a value. I don't want to say like, hey, we charge this money because it was just arbitrary. I want to make $6,000 per person. He was spending his time with it, right? If you hire an employee at a business and you pay them $120,000, right? That's a lot that you're putting into. That's a lot that you're investing to get a result. And companies do that. Companies will pay you $120,000 a year because they know they're going to get 5 to 10x the value in return for that $120,000. Plus, they're going to keep you capped and you can't go moonlight somewhere else. And they're not going to allow you, if you do better, you're not going to make more money necessarily. Now, some people get bonuses and there's other things, but there's a whole lot of things outside of your control.
Yep.
What I could do with my friend is to say, hey, how much money do you want to make next month? And he goes, well, we did 42. I'd like to make 100. Great. How many sales do we need to make to get 100? Well, out of 6,000, right? Let's just make it 5 so my math is easier. We got to make 20 sales.
Right.
Do you think there's 20 people on the internet who would love to know how to launch their own roofing business in the next 90 days?
100%.
Right? Yeah, it's not hard to go find them, right? No. We already just showed you 22 and 7. Okay, well, how many do I need to do? How many people need to be in the room next time for me to get 20? Right? And so it's not that hard. Like I said, the math becomes easy. You know, I should have been a math major, right? Because it was like, it makes it more fun. I can make math fun, right? That's the cool part of it, right? And now here's the thing. The money's awesome, right? And it's great. Now he's got cash on hand. So guess what he does? Now he has people who do all his lead generation for him, right? Yep. He doesn't have to do any marketing. He just has to deliver his thing, right? And so that can go on and on and on. We did this with somebody, and in their first event, they did $300,000 in sales.
Holy fucking shit. And I bet you probably only ran, like $100 worth of Google or Facebook ads? To draw people to? Zero ads. Did they have an existing audience?
Now, well, so here's how I would have done it. Now, he had an audience of some kind. So he had like 7,000 people on an email list, right?
For those that are listening, right, like you either have to run ads or you have to have some kind of established audience.
But do you need to, like I said, 20 people? Right? Can we get a message in front of people and say, hey, if I did this for you, would you be interested in showing up to that? Right. And so, yeah, can you bootleg that? Can you elbow grease it out? Sure. Right. But ultimately what happens is after that, then you take that money you earned and you can reinvest that into an advertising campaign.
Yep.
And so that way that wheel keeps running. I know somebody spends $50,000 a month in advertising for a $500 product that they sell.
What's his ROI on that 50 grand?
They make money, but I've been on them about they need to let me help them because they should be doing a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you. The ad game, I think it can be powerful. I never want to just churn a bunch of money into ads. I don't like that.
Well, you should never do it that way. If you're going to do ads, listen, at the end of the day, if you put $1 in and get $2 out, then it's profitable.
Yes.
Right? Now, I think you should do more than that. And when you do, like, I help people get like 17, 18%, or return, right, on that. But it's not, again, at the end of the day, if you put $1 in and get $4 or $5 out, like, it's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, the challenge is that you're putting that money in, you're investing that money, and you have to get it on the return. When we do what we do, it's like, well, we can do this organic where it doesn't cost you anything. You can go test like my friend did and do 42 grand. And now, okay, let's split that, right? That's fine because I helped him. And so let's just split it. And then, but what we'll do is we'll carve out a piece. Let's carve out $10,000 from that. And now you have ads. Well, I'm going to get complex for people listening. Don't worry about this, right? It's okay. And I can help explain this. You can come to my site and you can see more of this, right? Well, let's just say you get $10 per lead going forward running your ads, right? To keep doing this, right? Okay. Well, so if you spent $10,000 on ads, right, that would be 1,000 leads, right? And if 1,000 leads, let's say you offer them the same experience, let's say only 10% of them even come to an experience where you can help them to do what you do, that's still 100 people in the room, right? Yeah. What did I say? 7 and 22?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What if that same percentage happens with 100 people, right?
Make 150 grand.
But let's just make it even easier. Let's say it's only 20. Like if somebody's really good and you have a really high value thing to do, most people close about 10% of their sales calls. We found doing our One Day Payday exercise the way that we do it and the epic experience that we provide, 20% or more go. So let's just say we hold that 100 people, 20 new clients at $6,000. Was $10,000 in ads worth it?
Yes, of course.
Right. If you make 100, if I say give me $10,000 for ads and then you will make 120, was the 10,000 worth it? You'd say yes, right? Now, obviously, there's different ways. You've got to deliver, right? You have to think about all those costs, right? But honestly, if you're doing coaching and consulting, right, you're taking about 70, 80% home,
And what I actually love about your method and what you've just explained is that you don't even have to have the thing that you're selling built. Go put on the event,
I actually
collect.
think unless you already have been selling it, it is actually malpractice for you to build something before you sell it.
Ooh, this is an interesting take. I like this because I see this a lot. A lot of people want to put some kind of course or some kind of knowledge program together and then go out and sell it. And it's like maybe you should do the reverse of that. Like, see if you can actually sell it first and then build it. And I'm sure it's really easy. You probably just put a little caveat to that. You pay for this today, it will be delivered to you in 2 weeks or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, and how are you when you do it that way? How do you determine exactly what to build? You know what I mean? Like, is it all based on what you've put together for the event that you're talking about in the event?
Well, it really depends on what you want to do, right? It depends on your offer, right? So the example I use, it's really easy to put that into like a systemized course and have regular meetings with people to help them do it. Like you can do these things one-on-one, you can do them one-to-many, you can do them all digitally, right? So it really depends on what you want to offer. But ultimately, when it comes down to coaching and consulting, and there's a distinct difference, right? Coaching is like helping people figure it out for themselves. Consulting is more, I'm providing the direct advice to you.
Yeah,
I
I'm
find
gonna
that
come
most
into
of,
your
yeah, I'm going to come
business.
into
I'm
your
gonna point
business and
out
tell you what to do,
what's
right?
fucked up,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then
But I find that mine's kind of a hybrid experience. Typically, what I end up using a lot of is kind of both, right? Because that's kind of what people need.
yeah,
But it really doesn't matter if it's at the end of the day, it's about what result you help people to get, right? And if
yes,
you don't know what that is, it's okay. Just think about the things that you love to do, right? Easy thing for especially officers. Hey, you're really good at leadership. You're really good at being able to make decisions. You're really good at being able to analyze data and what to do with it, right? Okay, let's think about how those things could be applied. What things are you passionate about, right? And we can go on and on from there. But ultimately, it becomes like this: do you have a high value skill set, and would you like to help other people use it? Well, then
mm-hmm.
you have the makings of what I would consider a premium offer that you can charge 3, 4, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, $30,000 for, depending on
Yeah,
how you position it. And it's not to say you're doing it just to do it. You're helping people get a premium result. I can go buy a car for $5,000. I can also buy one for $100,000. They're
yeah,
both cars, right?
yeah.
It's just the positioning of which ones. And I'm not saying the $100,000 is too expensive. I'm not saying $5,000 isn't good, right? I'm just saying there's gradations to this. And so ultimately, especially veterans, don't allow yourself to be caught somewhere. You have an amazing value and an amazing gift that you've been given. And whether you feel like you've been given it or you earned it, however, it's there. You should be using that to help others, and it should be monetized. That's all I say. And that's the kind of thing that I love to help people to do.
I love it, man. Justin, dude, thank you so much for spilling some sauce and really pointing us in the right direction for these guys and gals that are getting out, giving them some hope. Please tell us how everybody can reach out to you. Find out about the One Day Payday if they're interested, and then you'll book some time on your calendar to get that set in motion.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn, right? So my name's Justin Boyum. You can find me there, or you can go to my website, which is thechargeforward.com. So thechargeforward.com. And you can I have some trainings on there. I have some documents if you want to kind of check things out and see how they look. And you can also get on my calendar if you think that you would like to explore what this would look like for you and how you can go and help other people get some amazing results and also be able to bring some money home so you can take care of your family and do the things that you know are important. I'd love to have that conversation. But more information is there, or you can follow me on LinkedIn. Is the best place right now.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Justin Boyum. Thanks, dude, so much for being here. Thanks for tuning everybody into what you're doing and how you're helping the veteran community. We need more guys like you and I out here just kind of being leaders and pointing people in the right direction in our own little ways. And what I think is so great about it is we've been connected for a while. We're not competition, we're collaboration. Like I can't help everybody with the way I do things, and you can't help everybody with the way that you do things, but together we can help so many more. And so I really appreciate your time today. I really appreciate you being here and doing this for us. And ladies and gentlemen, again, Justin Boyum, go find him on LinkedIn, reach out to him if anything resonated with you here today. And we will see you guys next week with another awesome episode with another outstanding veteran who's doing wonderful things. Take care, everybody. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.